Good morning, good day. We're in the Maamarim of Ruach HaMoishel, Tafresh Pei Dalet, 1924. The last Inyan that we learned yesterday on 351 going on to 352 is an important idea. Yesterday we spent a lot of time on the idea of Chidush HaYeshonos, remember, renewing the old. So I won't really repeat that, just to say that that was what the Rebbe calls in the Maimer a yichud chitzoni of Abba ve'ima. In other words, it's an external type of a unity of a father and mother, referring to Chochmah and Bina. So now we're on 351, towards the bottom of the page. It's 5 lines from the bottom, the last 3 words. V'zehu, and this is Godol hanena migia kapoy yosim miresha mayim. It says, greater is one who benefits from his own effort more than fear of heaven. The ilu yira shamayim hi yiratato, because yira shamayim on its simple level is what we call yiratato. What does yiratato mean? A lower level of awe, a lower level of fear, where he's simply fearful of the punishment, Yehuda. So when you're simply fearful of the punishment, what's the reason why you are careful in what you do? It's because you know if you don't do it, you're going to get a violation, you're going to get a ticket if you speed. But really, if the policeman wasn't there, you would speed. So in other words, your yira, your awe, and your fear is driven by the punishment. That's called yiras ha'onish. He doesn't specify here what level of yiratato we're speaking about, so I'm just choosing one of various types of yiratato. Let's talk about a higher type of yiratato, where you're fearful not of the punishment, but of the of what people will say and think about you. So that's another type of yiratato. It's a lower type of yira. So the principle, the common denominator in all of yiratato is it's not genuine for itself. It's for something else or someone else. And although we say that the drawing down of the godly energy, which is caused by the renewal of the old, is in malchus, is in kingship and loyalty, meaning it comes all the way down. This is malchus, as malchus is part of the creator's ability to create something from nothing ex nihilo. So in other words, it's not really you. It's the koyach, he used the words here, Shmuel, koyach ha-mahava. It's the koyach ha-mahava me'ayin liyesh. So it's not you. It's attributed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he says, the koyach ha-mahava me'ayin liyesh, hu b'chinas keser malchus, the nod tchilosam b'seifim v'seifim b'tchilosam. The virtue of koyach ha-mahava, of the ayin liyesh, is the crown of malchus, which the beginning is wedged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning, meaning there's an association between the two. But the point being that all of this is not your doing. Your doing on this level is superficial, is external, is conditional. And if anything happens here that is more genuine, it's because of the godliness in the experience. Let's go on. This is a very deep inyan in Kabbalah and Chasidus, and let's go on. V'zeu v'chaltes kol ha'amim. You will consume all the nations. Now you remember, Baruch, the question that the Rebbe asked in the beginning of this chapter, which was the beginning of 350. What is this language? V'yochaltes kol ha'amim. You will consume all nations. What's the word, Yonis, and v'ochalta? You will eat. It's very, very strange language. You should say, you will destroy all nations. What's v'yochalta? I'm going to eat up the nations. So he says, "V'zeu v'chaltes kol ha'amim." This is the language v'chaltes kol ha'amim. Shehu. Next page. Everyone turn 352. Inyan halois haditzutzes. This is the elevation of the sparks. Shenoflu b'shviras hakelim, which fell through the shattering of the vessels. Misheva malkoyin kadmoyin detoyu. From where? From the 7 primordial kings of the world of Toyu, which we also spoke about in previous shiurim. I don't want to repeat that again. So this idea of a chalta, right? What did we learn earlier, Yoini? Yesterday we spoke about it. When you eat, you should make a bracha, have kavana, right? V'chalta. V'chalta is the idea of extracting the sparks from the gashmias, right? The idea of v'chalta is to extract the sparks. To extract the sparks. Avodas habirudim. So the Rebbe says here, v'chalta es kol ha'ami means that when we access the sparks that are found in the world, even by the goyim, just like when we eat something, we extract the sparks of divine energy in the food, and we do that through making a bracha and having kavan, as we discussed yesterday. So too with kol ha'amim, with all the nations around us, there is an underlying issue that we are v'ochalta, we kind of eat them, meaning we're looking to extract the energy that God gives them, and we look to extract them. That's the point. The inyan ha'Yerusha who Hiliya is b'mekayim k'vayshikosav v'yiroshum v'yeshu tachtam. What is the idea of Yerusha as it applies to the goyim, to the nations? It's to take over their place. As it says, Vayiroshum, he inherited them, Vayeshu tachtam, and he sat and he dwelt in their place. The halacha is shalom, that someone who's a yoresh, an inheritor, is exactly like the morish, the one giving the inheritance. All aspects of the morish are transferred to the yoresh in that issue that he is inheriting. An inheritance means that whatever was associated with the inheritance, as it is by the inheritor before the inheritance, is now transferred exactly to to the one who inherits it. That's what he says. So that's the inyan ha'Yerusha hu b'mekayman. The idea of the Yerusha is to be in the place, in the exact place where they are. U'kamay ha'yoresh hu b'mokem ha'moresh. Kamay kain. So too, through the activity of birudim, of refinement, of working with the sparks, mamshichim ha'oreis the tayu, we draw down the passionate energy of tayu, shekodmu b'maylo madrege b'hakelim b'rechovim detikin, that precede in level and in experience the broad vessels of tikkun. So again, now he adds here something he didn't say before. He adds the word kelim b'rechovim. Shmuel and I know a story that happened with Rabbi Kunin in 1982 or 83, I think 83 or 84. Rabbi Kunin, who's the head of Chabad in California, who heads the Chabad houses, was at the time $17 million in debt. And I mean kipshuta, literally. This wasn't an exaggeration. And Rabbi Kunin, the banks were foreclosing on him, and teachers weren't being paid, and it was a real big mess. I was in the yeshiva at the time, and the pressure was, it was for several years. It was tremendous pressure. So Rabbi Kunin came to the Rebbe on Shabbos Parshas Vayera, and he was standing, I believe, on Sunday. He was standing in the hallway for Mincha. The Rebbe would come into the shul at 3:15 from Mincha, and he noticed Rabbi Kunin, and he took out the Rebbe would give tzedakah to children and others standing there, and there's a pushka right in front of the small base medrash on 770, and they would put in the tzedakah. And the Rebbe gave Rabbi Kunin, I think, a nickel or a dime, one of the two, I don't recall which. And the Rebbe quoted from that week's Haftorah, Kelim Reikim Al Tamiti. You know, the story with the Isha Shunamis, just 2 weeks ago, the Haftorah, right? Which says, Kelim Reikim, empty vessels, Al Tamiti. Don't minimize. In other words, make sure that the kelim are full. And the Rebbe quoted that to Kunin and gave him a coin. That's what happened. He went back to California, and all this time he was dealing with a very serious court case about a will that that Weinberg, there was a wealthy person in California who actually grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and if you drive down Bay Parkway, the next time you drive down, there's the Jewish Community Center, the JCC, and you'll see the name Weinberg on it. And that's this family. And I happen to know a cousin of his who's ready, Noel Ma'emes, a doctor who was a very good friend of mine who was associated with this family. Anyway, the producer of the Chabad yearly telethon was a guy named Jerry Weintraub. Shmuel, is he alive or he passed on already too? Doesn't know. Anyway, so Jerry Weintraub calls Kunin one day and he says, Rabbi Kunin, there's a lady who's dying in the hospital. You have to visit her. So Kunin doesn't ask any questions. He gets into the car. He goes down to Cedar Sinai Hospital on Beverly Boulevard, and he goes and visits her. Once, twice, she dies. She was divorced from Jerry Weinberg, and she left over $120 million to charity. $40 million to Chabad, $40 million to the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and $40 million, I think, to the Heart Foundation. Well, her husband contested the will that was left to Chabad, accusing Rabbi Kunin of forcing her to leave the money and all that. And it was a major court case, and Kunin had great lawyers, and they owned property. They owned the Hawaii Hilton. He owned the Hawaii Hilton, and it was for a few years the court case was going, and then he got and it was in court. He got the nickel from the Rebbe that Sunday. He came back to California on Monday, and the phone rang, and the lawyer said, Rabbi Kunin, I was just offered a settlement of $21 million. Do you want to take it or not? Rabbi Kunin right away called the Rebbe's office and asked the secretary to ask the Rebbe whether he should take it. And the Rebbe said, settle and take the $21 million. He took the $21 million, and I heard from a friend of Shmuel and mine, a friend of ours, Yoel Edelson, who was Rabbi Kunin's book. Yoel Edelson. He was Rabbi Kunin's bookkeeper, accountant, whatever, a bookkeeper. And Yoel told me that he drove with Rabbi Kunin in the car, and they went from house to house, paying off every single person, whether it was $1 or $10 or $1 million. He had a checkbook with him, and he wrote the checks, and he got out of the car, and he gave it, and he went to the next place, and the next place, and he paid off.
The first check went to Chaim Dalfin Spiegel.
Oh.
First check went to Chaim Spiegel.
Oh, really?
So you'll get paid. Yes.
Okay. I see that. I didn't know. Thank you for telling. Thank you.
Yeah.
And he paid off. He paid off $17 million. He was left with a few $1,000,000. He gave the yeshiva and a school. After a few years, it was all gone. But why am I saying this? Because the Rebbe told him, Kalim reikim al tamiti. Don't have empty vessels. So the question is, if I already have a vessel, I can have a small cup or I can have a big cup. So here's another story. There's a Jew in Crown Heights, maybe Laser knows the family. They're called the Drizzen, Shalom Ber Drizzen. The Drizzen, so Shalom Ber Drizzen, in 1979, first of all, my father worked for him in the 60s. He was in the shmata business. And he was, hustling and bustling. My father, before he got married, he put away a few dollars. So Shalom Ber was a friend of his. He's older, but they knew each other from Crown Heights. So he came to my father and he says to my father, listen, do me a favor. You're not married yet. You put away some money. Loan me the money. I'll give it back to you when you're married, And my father did. And in fact, my father took out his little book where he wrote down how much money he loaned to Shalom Ber Drizzen. And at the 80th birthday of Shalom Ber Drizzen, they made an event at Crown Heights. My father was invited. My father got up. He took out his little book from 1960 and he showed it to everyone. And he said, the building you're in now is not Drizzen's. It's my building. He said, look, I loaned Shalom Ber Drizzen money. And yes, he paid me back. Oh, so Shalom Ber Drizzen said to everyone, how much do I owe you? I'll pay you back right now, but the building is mine. But what's the point? Here's the point. So in 1979, he put away some money and he bought one building in Manhattan. And from there, and he put in all his cash, everything. He had nothing. He had, I think, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, all into that building, and that's it. And Baruch Hashem, today, he's not just a millionaire. I think he's already in the billionaire club, okay? From one building in 79 in Manhattan, and he didn't invest in stocks, and he only paid cash. He has, he's from Russia, from Europe. He has a certain way of doing things. But why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this. So when he went into the Rebbe, the Rebbe said to him, so what are you thinking of doing? So he says, I'm thinking of buying some real estate. A small building here, a small building here. And the Rebbe looked up at him with a big smile. The Rebbe said, Farvos kleine binyanim? Why small buildings? Farvos nicht große binyanim? Why not big buildings? He tells her, that's what the Rebbe told him back then. And he listened. He bought a big building and more big buildings. I don't know if you know, but you know where the old Ebbets Field is? Yeah, on Bedford Avenue, right off Empire Boulevard, where the Brooklyn Dodgers used to play. He owns that property. That's projects, big projects. He is the owner of that. So Baruch Hashem, Hashem has benched him. But that came because the Rebbe told him, big vessels, not small little vessels, big vessels. So we're learning here. What?
I understand. What was it that the Rebbe told him when he took the money out of the purse? What he said that he shouldn't? Bekonim, what did you say?
Bekonim. Where does it connect to it?
No. I quoted earlier the pasuk in the Haftarah of Vayera with Isha Shunamis, Kalim Reikim Al Tamiti. Don't bring me empty vessels with the Shemen from the Haftarah. The Rebbe said that to Kunin in 83 when he gave him the nickel. In other words, your vessel should be full. And right that week, he got the offer for the $17 million. But now I'm going a step further. I'm saying that with the story with Drizim, the Rebbe told him big buildings, not small. But in other words, you can make a vessel. And why am I saying this? Why am I saying this, Laser? Because the language here in the Mimer, look in the Mimer, it says, B'hakelim rechavim detikin. There is kalim, small kalim, or narrow kalim, and then there is big vessels. Going back to the Maimon, I just wanted to emphasize the Lashon in the Maimon. Going back to the Maimon, he says that through the avodah of birurim, through refining, the process of refinement, we draw down the energy of a tayu. The tayu v'tikin, hini tayu, hey meiris merubim, v'kelim muatim, v'kelim muatim. V'tikin, kelim merubim, v'eiris muatim. You see, in tayu, the light, the energy is very powerful. The passion is great, but the receptacle for the passion is very small. You know, sometimes, whether it's us, whether it's the other people, we're very passionate and we're very energized, but we don't have the vessels to handle it. I mean, you could come home after the shiur and just wow, 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 and then your wife or someone else says, I don't understand the word, it's too much, it's an overload, be quiet. But you're on fire. But you need kalim. So right? Then there is a situation where you have tikkun is kalim urabim. You have a broad kalim. Everything is orderly and organized. But guess what? There's no passion. What's the job? The job is to blend the two, and that's what the Rebbe said at Fabrengen in 82 when he spoke about lechatchila Rebbe, the Rebbe Marash. Shmuel, you remember what was the Rebbe's wording? Oides the toyu, bekalim the tikkun. What's the pshat? The energy should be full of fire and passion. But kalim the tikkun, it has to filter itself through the channels of order. Why? Because if you overwhelm order, even though you're on fire, or the situation is passionate, there's no receptacles. They can't receive it. So there has to be, the passion has to be oiris the toyu. Became the ticket, continuing inside. So he says, and why was there what we call the shattering of the vessels? That was because there was two little kalim. So Yerusha means that we inherit the passion, the energy of Toyu, and we draw it down, not just in the Kalim of Tikkun, but in the broad Kalim of Tikkun. So in other words, in our organized life, there is the sensation of passion and drive, which is, but it has to coincide with the Kalim of Tikkun. Let's continue the next paragraph. This will explain what we learned earlier, that the verse is the Moshe who mechabe nishmas Yisrael l'matayra. Moshe is Rabbeinu, we discussed already in earlier shiur, is the one who connects Jewish souls with the Torah. An extension of Moshe is found in every generation. The Gadol Adoin Mechaber is Doira Batoire. The leader, the Gadol of the generation, connects the generation through Torah, as we said earlier. And then through Torah, it's an inheritance for the congregation of Yaakov. The Yaakov is two words, Yud Akef, the heel of the Yud, of the letter Yud, which represents Hashem. Shegam b'bchinas hakvayim, meaning even in the heel. Shehem bali asokim v'yeshikronis. Who is the heel amongst the Jewish people? Those people that are involved in business and sitting in the corners, and they're all, surrounded by all the taivas and all the issues. They're not in the koilel. They're working. They're out there. But if they conduct themselves according to Torah, faithfully doing their business, then in their place of business they refine the sparks. This is the idea of inheritance. They inherit the sparks of Toyu. Yaakov is a sincere man sitting in the tents. The Yaakov represents the Yud, the Jew of the heel, through refinement, through working. So if this Yaakov, if this business person is sitting in the tents of Torah, it doesn't mean he's in kollel or in yeshiva. It means that he takes time every day to learn one chapter in the morning, one chapter in the evening. He will inherit the previous mentioned passionate sparks. The Sidre HaYerusha B'Misa'olam Einik Seder Yerusha B'Yisrael. And the Rebbe adds, the order of inheritance by non-Jews is not the same as by Jews. V'im kein haloi etzlam b'chlal hu al derech dichsiv uveinein lo yinusatim zachalochav. The Rebbe says, what is the order of inheritance by non-Jews? It's similar to what it says in the Torah. If one does not have a son, so then you give the portion, the inheritance, to his brother. V'ksiv, and it says, haloi och Esav liYaakov. Behold, Esav is a brother to Yaakov. V'lazois, therefore, Yaakov hu hayodesh. Who is the inheritor? Who inherits it? Yaakov. V'hainu. The mishu eisik b'avodas habirim. V'loi metayre b'kiyasitim. Someone who's involved in refinement, and he studies Torah in a set way. More specifically, someone who merits not only to learn himself but to teach others. He inherits all the good that there is in the sparks of Toyu that fell in the Shvira. So what we have from this idea, Rabbi Isai, is the importance of not only learning ourselves but teaching others. And to teach others, you don't have to be a rabbi, you don't have to be ordained, and you don't have to be a biknaker. Believe me, every person has people on their block, in their building, who would love to hear a word of Torah. And the Rebbe says here, when you do that, and he says specifically, he's talking to Yud Ekev, he's talking to the business people, and he's telling the business people that what I want of you is to be an inheritor of Torah. And so when we talk here about in the Maamar, the second level of Torah, Yoni, the level called Yerusha, right? This is what we're talking about. He says that ultimately the Yerusha is given. Why is he emphasizing the business people? If it's a Yerusha, Laser, if it's a Yerusha, it's to everyone. It's not just to a business person, it's to a rabbi too. But the reason what he's emphasizing is because the chiddush is in the business person. You would think that the business person, what shaychus, what relevance do I have with Torah? I have to think about the cow and the plunger and the computer and the electric and the this and the that. There's rabbis and rabbanim and rebbes and teachers, and I support them. That's great. Says the Rebbe, it's true, but that's not, the real chiddush, the real novelty of Yerusha, and look what he says, that you get the Eirish Diktayu, the real energy baruch, comes to the business person. In other words, the rabbi, the teacher, the one in kollel and the one in yeshiva and all that, the Yosef Yitzchak doesn't really have the passion. Now why is that? Because passion comes from life's experience. Life's experience is in the business world. Hashgacha pratis. You see, Hashgacha pratis, divine providence, every waking moment when you're in the business world. It's not even a question. Someone who learns, he's sitting and learning Gemara, Chasidus, Halacha. It's great. But the Hashgacha pratis, seeing the divine hand, is when the story, just a brief story, this chassid came to the Rebbe back in the 50s, and the Rebbe told him to give a tremendous amount of tzedakah. He came from Eretz Yisrael. He was in construction business. He did very well. And he asked the Rebbe, how much should he give? And so he wrote down a certain amount. And the Rebbe told him, give, I think, 3 times as much. So he said to himself, if I do that, I've emptied out my bank account. Because to begin with, he gave a big amount. But the Rebbe said, and he was a chassid. And he did it. He did it, and he said to himself and to his friends, I don't have any money. My money is all gone. It's been given to the Rebbe. That week, there was someone calls him a diamond dealer from Belgium or South Africa, I forget where, and says, I want to propose a deal. And he made back tenfold the amount he gave. It's is that not Hashgacha Pratis? And by the way, sometimes the Hashgacha Pratis works the other way. I'm not going to tell you that Hashgacha Pratis is always only in the up. The Hashgacha Pratis is whatever the Eibishter wants. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.